Welcome to Saturday Live at the Backyard Bird Center. Here we are in the middle of April, and today we had our first two reports of Baltimore Orioles in people's backyards. And believe me, Baltimore Orioles are one of the most anticipated birds that return each spring that we can get in our backyards. And I've done other programs on them, but I thought today what I would do is really just concentrate on attracting them, and especially in a year like this year, because it's a very, very late spring here in Kansas City. I would assume that a lot of places are like that. I know there's people watching from all over, so it depends on kind of the state of your vegetation, etc. But Baltimore Orioles, the whole thing started, 40 years ago or more now, kind of when it got going, when people would look out and look at their hummingbird feeder and see this bright orange and black bird, much bigger than a hummingbird, obviously, on their feeders, trying to get their bill in to drink the sugar water. And that has led to this whole feeding Orioles in your backyard thing that goes on every spring. Now, first off, people want to ask about that and like, oh, can I get them all year? No. Baltimore Orioles are neotropic migrants. That means they spend the winters down in Cancun and the Yucatan Peninsula and Belize and places like that. And they return here in the spring now, and they do it by day length. If you watch any of my videos, you've heard me talk about this, that birds in Costa Rica don't know what the weather's like in Kansas City. So their timing of return here is based on day length, and it's triggered by that and also aided by wind patterns. So when the wind blows out of the south, it's easier for them to migrate and make their way back north. So it's amazing. They return about this same time every year, and boy, we say the 15th or tax day is a good day to remember, and sure enough, the 16th, here we get our first two reports. So now what's different this year than many other years is, well, I have a video going that I filmed in my backyard on the 15th of May, oh gosh, I can't say it, the 15th of April a few years ago, and in that video, all of the trees in my backyard are completely leafed out. It is just a wall of green. Well, if I shot that video from there today, there's not a single leaf on any of those trees. They're just starting to bud. So leaf out this year is very, very late. And in years like this, whenever we do have a late leaf out and a late flowering of their favorite trees, which and for the most part are black locust in this area. There's no black locust flowers. Well, those tend to be years we get a lot of activity from the Baltimore Orioles on our feeders. So this will be a great year to get your feeders out. Now, what do people feed them? Now, it's threefold. Obviously, we talked about them first seeing them on hummingbird feeders drinking sugar water, so you can feed them just sugar water if you want. This is a feeder that's like a hummingbird feeder, but it's made for Orioles. It has bigger ports, it has bigger perches for the Orioles to land on to be able to drink out of. And I know people who only feed sugar water, and they have luck with Orioles. But a lot of you that have been at this and you're watching, you're going, Mark, tell them about the grape jelly. Tell them about the grape jelly. Well, I don't know who came up with the idea of the grape jelly, but Orioles do eat a lot of fruit, especially in the fall, blackberries and things. But putting out grape jelly, we call it the crack cocaine of the Oriole world because they love it, especially early in the season when they're first here. Boy, quick energy for them, and whenever they get back here, obviously they've been flying. They're very tired. They've lost a lot of body fat in migration, and so they're eating it heavy, and so they tend to hit your bird feeders really heavy. And what do you put jelly in? Well, there's all kinds of ways to put jelly in. Just trays like this, there's all kinds of fruit and jelly combination feeders. There's all kinds of ways just to put that grape jelly out. But to attract them, the more orange color, the better. And the other thing, sugar water, grape jelly, the other part is citrus. They love oranges, and oranges cut in half or oranges quartered, but also lemons and grapefruits. They'll eat those as well, and they can be cut in half or quartered. And there are feeders for those. There's stakes that you can put your citrus on. Some people just stab them onto broken off limbs in their trees. There's a little stab where they can just stab the orange half on there. I had a friend who used to put finishing nails. He would tack like 6 finishing nails across his deck railing and just stab an orange quarter all the way across his deck, and the Orioles would come and eat on those oranges and eat the pulp out of those. So that's another, the more orange color, the better. Most Oriole feeders are orange, and then, I guess citrus association, I don't know. But I've also heard people have luck by stringing like orange ribbon or orange thread so that it blows in the wind below their Oriole feeder, just anything to catch their attention. Now, if it's an Oriole that hasn't fed at bird feeders before, they may be a little shy, but once they get used to it, once those Orioles know where that food source is and they come in, they're pretty bold. I've had them come right up to on a tray I had on my window. It had oranges in it, and they would come up and feed on those right there at it. And they also, when they get to know you, whenever they get to know that's where that food source is, and a friend of mine several years ago didn't have her Oriole stuff out yet, and she had a window tray feeder, and she was in the kitchen working, and the tray feeder was right there on her kitchen window. She heard tapping on her window, and she turned and looked, and the Baltimore Oriole was in the tray where she usually put the jelly cups and the oranges, and was tapping on her window to let her know he was there and he wanted his food. And so she immediately got everything together and put those out. Now, the Oriole season, for the most part, is early now. 2 to 3 weeks of good activity. But once they start nesting, so after that first 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a lot of the birds will move on because a lot of birds will nest further north than here. So we'll have a lot of activity from migrants coming through. But the birds who stay in nest, once they get through that early spring season and they get into the nesting season where they're building their nest and they've got babies, they are mostly, almost exclusively eating insects. So a lot of people will switch out because the jelly consumption goes way down, but they will supplement that with mealworms because they can feed the mealworms to the babies, plus they can eat the mealworms. And then one of the tricks is putting mealworms on top of the grape jelly. And that way they can learn to eat the mealworms off of there. Some people just put the dry or live mealworms in a tray, and the Orioles get used to that. So that's something you can do after that jelly slows down, especially during the nesting season. And then in early July, they'll start bringing their babies in and teach them to eat that jelly, and then those adults leave pretty quickly. The Baltimore Orioles are some of the earliest birds to migrate south out of us. The adult males leave first, and the adult females. But this early spring pattern is when you're going to get the activity at your feeders. And right now is the time to have your stuff out and ready. Again, you got to keep the nectar fresh. You want to keep the jelly fresh, and that they will gobble it up. When you offer all 3 things, you can let them show you what they want. If they're not eating the oranges, you don't have to put the oranges out anymore. If they're not eating the jelly, don't put the jelly out. Just cater to what your birds want. But I've rarely had them not eat the jelly. So that's usually the key there. So the jelly is great. Yes, you don't want any sugar substitutes. You want real sugar in your jelly rather than high fructose corn syrup and the substitutes. So I think a lot of times they call it natural jellies and things like that. So those are better for them for sure. So thanks for the idea for the program. Orioles are inspiring. People love them. And it's now time. Please let us know when you're getting your Orioles because they are coming in now and coming in fast. So the wind's supposed to be out of the south here a little bit. That'll bring more in and you'll get to enjoy them. So give us a like, give us a share. If you're on YouTube, please get subscribed. Send in ideas for future programs. Until next time, we'll talk birds.